Hello everyone, I'm Charlie Davis of Capital Athletics. This is the Capital Women's Basketball Podcast. Joining me now, the head coach of the women's basketball program here at Capital, Dixie Jeffers. Coach, we all have athletes and coaches that we look up to. If you could talk to any athlete, any coach, who would it be?
If I could talk to any athlete, it would be Mia Hamm, because I've always admired her and her journey that she and the soccer team took years ago, because I think they had a tremendous impact on women's athletics. If I could talk to any coach, and I have talked to Pat Summitt, but that's who I'd want to sit down and talk with, is her again. You know,
I recently read Pat Summitt's biography. It was written with Sally Jenkins. Fantastic book. Sum It Up is the title of the book.
Yeah, I've read all of her books. I've had personal talks with her. Just a wonderful human being. She's changed the impact of women's athletics too, and I think Mia Hamm and a person like Pat Summitt, you know, why wouldn't you want to talk to the best?
A couple of weeks ago I was talking with Coach Goodwin of the men's basketball team, and I was asking him, what teams did you root for when you were a kid? Which athletes did you look up to? Who were some of your idols growing up?
Well, you got to understand that women were evolving when I was growing up, so we were still looking at the male side of things. So you look at Lucas, you look at Havlicek, you look at people, and they were way before me, but you know, Jerry West, I was a huge Jerry West fan, just because of how he controlled the game and how he handled the basketball and his vision on the court. And obviously I didn't play post, so I was going to watch another guard play, but there wasn't a lot of females that I could emulate and think back about, because I was evolving right with them.
Jerry West, by the way, known for his memory way back in the day. Wasn't it he that went on the Tonight Show and memorized like an entire page of like the New York phone book or something like that?
It wouldn't surprise me. You know, it really wouldn't at all. It's incredible, because I think a high IQ brings good athletes to the floor.
Were there any favorite teams growing up besides Ohio State basketball?
For me, I watched the Immaculata. I mean, they were evolving. They were the big women's team, and Delta State was a big women's team coming through. And then when Pat started coaching down at Tennessee, you just kind of grew up with Tennessee basketball, because she just kept watching it evolve.
Another question I asked Coach Goodwin a couple weeks ago. If you weren't a coach, what profession would you be pursuing? I know that's very tough because you've been doing this for almost your entire life, but if coaching wasn't in the cards, what was Plan B for Dixie Jeffers?
Well, Plan B and Plan C probably would have been, I still probably could go back and do this because I've done this ever since in coaching. We'd be in some type of business, some kind of sales, because we're constantly marketing a product to get young women to come play for us here. And then the other part would probably be psychology or psychiatry, because you constantly have to have that ability to talk and listen and to try to help people with their problems. When I started, it was all about X and O's. And it is so far away from X and O's now, it's not even funny. And unless you're on the inside, you really wouldn't understand that. There are just a lot of things going on with our young people today, at home and in their daily lives.
We're talking with head coach Dixie Jeffers here on the Capital Women's Basketball Podcast. In 2 weeks, another Super Bowl will be played. We already know that Seattle and New England are going to be playing against each other. Super Bowl 49 in Glendale, Arizona. Do you have any big Super Bowl memories from back in the day?
I'm a Bengals fan.
Okay.
So probably when the Bengals were there and it looked like they were going to win that championship, I was in college. I think it was either my graduate year or my senior year in college.
Darn Joe Montana, right?
Joe Montana quarterbacked the best comeback of the century, and probably that one was very memorable for me.
What do you make of how the Super Bowl has developed as like a spectacle? The first Super Bowl, I think that they celebrated recently the 45th anniversary of it or something like that, and now it's this major spectacle where it's big news when they name who sings the national anthem. It's big news who performs at halftime. What do you make of how it's grown over the years?
Well, I'm not a commercialized person. And I think anytime you start commercializing so much that you take away from what the intent and what the true aspect of the event is supposed to be. When we traveled to Italy, I didn't care for Rome because it was so commercialized. It was so much like being back in the States, other than you knew you weren't in the United States. And for me, I like the small, simple things. I like the hype, but when it gets to the point that it's bigger than the game itself, and where the bands are being featured, and who at halftime is going to be featured, and who's the national anthem, we're getting a little out of control. And what they ate for breakfast, That to me,
A little too much information.
a little too much information. Let's just go play the game.
Speaking of the game, do you have a game prediction? Seattle or New England, if you had to pick one right now?
New England.
Really?
Yes.
Tom Brady, Bill Belichick, I assume?
Well, they're pretty hot. Seattle backed into this Super Bowl on the blunderiness of the Packers. So it is what it is. Anything can happen, but I like the Patriots to win.
You hear it here first. Dixie Jeffers picking New England to win Super Bowl 49. Let's now talk about your basketball team. Kind of a split week. 83-77 win over Marietta, and then you follow that up with a 62-56 loss to Heidelberg. Let's first talk about the win over Marietta. I've been talking with players and coaches about how the buzzword with this team has been finish, and they were able to finish in that game against Marietta. They had a big lead, let Marietta get back into the game, but ultimately they got the win. How big was that win for the confidence going forward for your team?
I mean, we needed a win. We beat a very good Marietta team. Their record doesn't indicate what kind of basketball team they are. They're probably the best shooting team that we have seen all year long. Yes, we did lose a big lead, but we found a way to win down the stretch. So I thought, this is really good. We feel really good about going into the locker room, and we did. And we had great practices leading up to Heidelberg. Then we go into Heidelberg. We had a good first half, and then things became a little debacled, so to speak, in the second half. And we didn't finish, but we had every opportunity with 37 seconds left in the game to continue to win, and we fell short. And it's tough on the road in the OAC.
Do you feel like the offense is turning the corner?
I think that we're inconsistent. I think we're still trying to find 5 kids that can gel on the floor at once. But we've tried a ton of combinations. We are in search. It's one of those years. And I'm hoping that we'll come out of it. We're going to continue as a coaching staff to be positive, to push these kids, to drill these kids fundamentally. And we're going to see where it takes us. But it's time to start to show some other faces on the floor to see what they can do.
Let's talk about the stretch coming up. Next 4 games, a home game against Muskingum, a road game at Ohio Northern, a home game versus Wilmington, and then a road game out Mount Union. What do you make of that recent stretch? What needs to happen in order for your team to make January a success by the time February rolls around?
Well, I want out of January because we've been in a January funk for a while, and we just have got to stay focused and stay to the basics of everything and be positive, lift one another up, and say it's not a typical capital year. But you know what? This happens to a lot of teams. This is a new territory for this program, and this program needs to suck it up and figure out how to dig themselves out of it, and that's what we're going to do.
Speaking of new territory, you're coming up on a pretty big milestone in your coaching career. One more win, and you have 600 career victories here at Capital. I know coaches don't like to look at numbers. They're focused on winning. They're focused on developing their teams. But what does the number 600 mean to you when you get that?
It means I've been blessed with a lot of talent. I've been fortunate in my career to keep my health for the most part. It means that I've been around for a long time, because when you win 600 wins, you've been coaching a long time in the business. But it's about the kids. I would give up any kind of accolade personally to have this team turn around this year and start to believe in themselves and start to play. The focus isn't on me. The focus still remains on this program, the tradition, and where we need to go forward.
Finally, Coach, our random question of the week. I don't know if you noticed or not, but we recently celebrated Martin Luther King Jr. weekend, and of course Dr. King was so huge in making this world a better place overall. So our random question of the week is, if you could get rid of one thing that can make our world a little bit better, whether it be world peace or getting rid of hunger or whatnot, what would it be?
I would like, there's a couple things. I would like to rid the world of disease, all disease. And the biggest thing I would like for us to see no barriers of color at all. Since we are talking about MLK Jr. Day, it's baffling to me how people can't embrace one another. And seriously, I know it sounds like a cliche, have actually looked deeper to see the person and value the person regardless of color and regardless of gender.
Thank you very much, Coach, for joining us here on the Women's Basketball Podcast, and best of luck going forward.
Thanks very much.
That was head coach Dixie Jeffers joining us here on the Capital Women's Basketball Podcast for Capital Athletics. I'm Charlie Danis. We'll see you next time.